All right, so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to demonstrate where to get software to install into VMware. The first thing we need to do is figure out where to get VMware from. So one of the things you can do is if you click on My Profile, you're going to see the CSIT web store. And you click on that, and that will take you to the Department of Computer Science and Information Technologies web store. Once you're here, you're going to log in. If you lost your credentials, one of the things you can do is you can click on, let me sign out here. You can click on Forgot Username and Password, and your username is going to be your Frostburg email address, and then click and then have that send that to you. Once you're signed in, you can come under your different software. In my case, yours will land a little bit different. And we can download Windows 10. Now when you go to download Windows 10, it's going to give you a code. So I want to add this in. It says that I've already ordered it, but it'll give you a code as we check out. So let me see if I can get it to do that with a different piece of software here. Let me see. The project should do it. So I'll come in and I'll say I want to add that. And then I want to say checkout. And then right here is your key. All right, so you're going to want to download that key. The other piece of software we want to get is Ubuntu. And you're going to go to ubuntu.com. And then you're going to click on downloads. And you want to get Ubuntu 18.04.1 LTS. The LTS stands for long-term service. And what that means is they're going to maintain patches and updates for 5 years after the release. To give you a little bit of insight into how Ubuntu does their versions, the 18 is the year and the 04 is the month. So this came out in April, and as we see here is a newer one, 1810, that came out back in October. All right. So once we've downloaded that, we're going to, you also maybe need to know where to get VMware. So under the CSIT web store, you're going to click on VMware, and you're going to be presented with several different solutions. If you're on a Windows machine, you're going to download VMware 15. If you're on a Mac, you're going to download VMware Fusion 11. Now, they're going to look slightly different, but they function identical. So as you download these and you use these, kind of keep that in mind as you move forward. It's not too difficult. You'll be able to figure it out. All right. So now I have those downloaded, and I'm going to launch VMware. So you want to download the VMware Workstation Pro, and that's what I'm going to launch. And I want you to get familiar with installing an operating system from scratch. So that's what this is going to enable us to do. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to say File, New Virtual Machine. It's going to ask what we want to do. Well, I want to do a custom because I want to walk you through, but you can do the typical if you want. So it's going to ask me what kind of hardware compatibility I want. I recommend you look into this because everything runs in virtualized environments in today's industry setting. So you want to take the time to kind of get yourself familiar with this dialogue and to understand it a little bit. We downloaded the ISOs. I have one of them on my desktop. I'll install the Ubuntu first. So here is the Ubuntu installer. So I'm going to open that. I'll click on Next. It's going to ask me for my full name. It's going to detect that this is a Linux machine. Oops. Username, password. All right. I'm going to click on Next. It's going to say, what do I want? Well, I want to set this up as example install. Linux. Now we have the opportunity to be able to change the parameters of our virtualized environment. Number of processors, I want to bump that up to 2. I'll leave the number of cores alone. How much memory do I want in here? The more memory you put into the virtualized environment, the better it's going to run, of course, but it's also going to potentially slow down your host machine. If you have 8 or 16 gigs of RAM, you can easily put 2 or 4 gigs of RAM in here. This particular host machine has 32 gigs of RAM, so I'm actually going to put 4 gigs of RAM on the inside of my machine. You can play with this after the fact as well. Click on Next. So now we're faced with the different networking connection types. Do I want to do bridge? Do I want to do a NAT? Do I want to do host only? If you do a bridged, that's like plugging your virtualized environment directly into your router. If you do a NAT, that stands for Network Address Translation, and it's kind of like a very basic firewall. Host only isolates it, and it can only run and function on the host with other virtualized environments on said host. I'm going to do a bridged network in my case. For these are the different controllers. You can look these up if you want to understand them, but it's how are we attaching internal disks to our computer. And then do we want to create a virtual disk? I do. How big do I want to make it? 20 gigs is fine. And I'll go ahead and let it start that up. All right. So it's going to automatically start that up, and it's going to start installing everything for me automatically, including going through the process of installing the guest editions. If you get done and the guest editions have not installed, you're going to need to Google how to install guest editions in Linux and walk through the steps on how to do that. All right. The next thing that I want to do is install Windows. I need to grab something here real quick. Oh wait, actually I think I have it. Maybe not. So I want to grab a copy of Windows 10. I'll put it onto my desktop because I don't think it's out there. All right, so there we go. So now what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and I want to set up a new installation. So I want to say File, New Virtual Machine, and this time I'm going to do a Windows 10. So I want to come out and I want to select on the desktop that Windows 10 Enterprise Edition. My product key, I should be able to skip it for the version I have, but you'll need to put in the version that you have because I have an Enterprise Edition. And I'm not going to put a password in here for now. Or I guess actually I will go ahead and put one in. And I'm going to call this example install for Windows. I want to put 2 processors, logical processors in that. And remember, I have a lot of RAM, so I want to put 4096. And again, I want to use bridged networking as well. So it's as if I'm plugging it into the closest router or the switch. There we go. And away that is going to go as well. Now my machine isn't going to slow down too much. Yours may. slow down just a hair. So be prepared for that. Okay, there we go. So now I'm off. I have two different installs that are going. So there's my Linux machine and there's my Windows machine. And now what I'd like to do is quickly show you the power of virtualization and why I want you to use it and why I'm taking the time to show you how to use it. The big thing is it gives us a nice, safe environment for us to be able to install our operating systems and then install other things inside that operating system. So for example, this password demo, I actually have it set up so that there are snapshots. So let me show you the snapshots. If I right click on this and I say snapshots, you can see that I had this snapshot manager. Now what I did was, this was a demo that I used to show people how to hack passwords. And what I did is every time I completed the demo, I reset it back to before passwords. So let me show you what this looks like. I'm going to go ahead and boot this thing up. Make sure there's nothing in here. I want to go ahead and boot this up. And when I boot it up, I'm going to create something on the desktop. So think of it this way. Think of it as I'm installing something onto the computer. Maybe it's a virus. Maybe it's some other type of a demonstration. And I have it set. If you install your own viruses, which you can do, there are plenty of places out there to download viruses to see how they work. But make sure that you set your network to host only, especially if it's a worm, because you don't want it to take over your parents' computers. Although it would be funny to you, they would probably yell at me. Which rightfully so, I guess, to an extent. All right, so here we have this Windows machine up and running. I'll kick it into full screen. And let's do this. I'm just going to do something quick, like make a folder on the test desktop that says this is an example. And we can imagine that we've downloaded other things. All right. Now, once we're done, or maybe we get ourselves in trouble and we mess something up, we can take, and I'm just going to shut this thing down. I want to say power off. You notice that example folder there. So I want to power that off. Ruh-roh. We'll give it a second. It should recover there. Waiting on a new version to download there. There we go. So now that's shut down. So one of the things we can do is we can right click and we can go to Snapshot Manager. And I can say revert back to before passwords. I say go to. Are you sure you want to go to that? I sure do. It only takes a second. It's going to restore it back. And poof, not only did it take me back, but it took me back to long before I started doing my demonstration with the passwords in the first place. So notice that Explorer window is completely gone. So I could do it again. I can say, let's make a new folder. I'll call it something. I'll even make another one on here. Pretend I've installed something. I right click. I say Snapshot, Snapshot Manager. Go back to here. It doesn't matter where I'm at. It's going to revert back to that previous state. This is a great, now one of the things, since I didn't make a fork here, I didn't clone that off, it's going to delete those other snapshots, like where I was. So as you play with this, you'll figure out the power of it. All right. So those are the only two things that I really wanted to show you. Once you have everything up and running, you have your Linux up and running, and hopefully your Windows up and running. I don't know why mine's not moving through. Oh, it is moving through. I'm just being impatient. Once you have everything up and running, hopefully we're going to do some labs moving forward with Windows and Linux environment. For starters, in Chapter 2, they have you do some basic commands. For example, if you bring up the command here, they have you do ping and whatnot. My recommendation is if you're doing something in Windows, now that you have Linux installed, go over to Linux and figure out how to do it over here. It doesn't take much more than a Google search to figure out what the command is over here. A ping in Windows is a ping in Ubuntu, and they actually use the exact same command. However, there are times where things are identical, but they use slightly different commands. For example, ipconfig over here and ifconfig over here are the same thing. Let me see if I can get a terminal up. There we go. See, if I type in ipconfig, notice it isn't found, but if I type in if, there we go. All right. One other thing that I want to make a note of as we're experimenting with Windows and Linux is Windows is not case sensitive. So over here, if I type in ipconfig, it doesn't matter. Over here, if I type in the same thing, ifconfig in caps, notice it's going to say command not found. All right. So Linux is case sensitive, as I feel all operating systems should be, and Windows is not case sensitive. So as we move forward, that's what I want. When you're done installing your virtual environments, what I need is screen captures of your entire window, like this, everything, the entire desktop, showing VMware or Fusion running with your two different versions installed here. It's like that's waiting on me or something. Oh, it is. Should have come back to it. I thought it was automated. Oh well. That's okay. So that's what I need you to do. If you have any questions, email me, and thanks a lot.